Hey, good morning. Good morning.
So thank you for coming.
I'm delighted to be with you right now.
It's beautiful here. I don't know where you are, but it is snowing. It's
Same.
gorgeous.
It is absolutely stunning. I'll take some time this afternoon to do some cross country.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to probably go out and skate today.
Yeah, how lovely. So I want to kind of start with just setting the context of mindfulness in the way I understand it. And this concept literally came to me as an epiphany in the shower. It was my eureka moment. After years of studying, these masters, Eastern, Western, modern, and ancient, and it just came to me as an image of what they were pointing to. And I just wanted to kind of share this image with the audience here. So the concept here is to imagine that a mind is like a wheel. Some wheels are big, some are small, doesn't matter. A wheel is a wheel. Now, for a wheel to have a forward momentum, the wheel is dwelling in the future. It's a what if mind, What if this happens? What if this does not happen? This sort of a thing. For the wheel to have a backward momentum, it is in the past. So it's dwelling in the past. He said this, she said that should have happened, that didn't happen, this sort of a thing. For the wheel to have an upward momentum, it's in a condition called craving, which is I like it, I want it, I need it. It's slightly agitated. Right. And of course, for the wheel to be pulled down, it has what's called aversion. Aversion means I don't like it, I don't want it. So this is a typical mind that kind of spends a lot of time in these, in these different directions. Maybe a little example could help. I recently had a private client, and we did a very simple, small practice, just 5 minutes of breath awareness. And after the practice, I asked him, "How was it for you?" And he said, Bhaskar, I felt so peaceful. I felt so calm. It reminded me of my country home in Sutton. When I go to my country home in Sutton, it's in nature, it's very peaceful, it's very serene. And frankly, I've been so busy, I haven't been there for a while. It's kind of neglected. I need to fix it up and do the stairs and so on. But I felt very peaceful. And I asked this man with a lot of love and kindness and respect, what are you doing in your country house? The instruction was very simple, observe respiration, but somehow the mind went to some country house. Right. And we all have our version of the country house. So the art of the practice is to really be in the middle of the wheel. So the middle of the wheel, the midpoint between past and future presence, is technically called right awareness. Awareness of what's actually happening right now at the level of experience. In the midpoint between craving and aversion, this is called equanimity. Equanimity means a mind that doesn't get disturbed so easily, excited, depressed, So it's a calm, balanced mind. So for a very brief moment, this gentleman, he experienced that center of the wheel. He was there for a brief moment, but right away his mind associated to a past pleasant activity. So it went to past pleasant, my country house in Sutton. Then soon it became past unpleasant. Oh, it's falling apart, needs a new paint job, the stairs are breaking. Then it goes future pleasant. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to paint it. I'm going to do this. Then maybe future unpleasant. Oh, my back's going to hurt. It's expensive. And all of this is happening in just a matter of moments. So this is the condition of really what's called a monkey mind, like a monkey with a drunk monkey with a gun sort of a thing, jumping everywhere. So what we're looking to do is to cultivate a mind that has these qualities of being aware of what's happening right now and be in the middle of the wheel. Now, does this mean that there are no thoughts in the middle of the wheel? Not really, no. Thoughts can exist. And this is something called right thought or the working mind. So a simple example could be if, say, a highly skilled and experienced brain surgeon is doing a brain surgery on a young man. And a brain surgeon, if you look at the surgeon, she's moving with such immaculate precision. The minute movements, the sum total of all her training and experience and previous surgeries is coming out spontaneously. This is spontaneous, effortless excellence. Right mind, and the thoughts are what I call right thoughts, the working mind. Now, if the surgeon starts to just look outside the window and sees some people standing there and thinks to herself, this is the minister's son, sees the minister's wife, entourage of reporters looking in, and she thinks, what if I kill this poor fellow? I'd be all over the news. I'd be a big embarrassment. I may lose my medical license. I may have to move to a different country. My poor children have a new school. My poor husband, new job. Gone. Her mind is gone. Those thoughts have nothing to do with what's happening right now. Right. You see? So it's not that thoughts don't exist in the middle, but those thoughts are actually pertaining to what's happening right now.
Right. I get it.
So when we sit in the formal practice, the seated formal practice that many people are aware of, because you're not doing anything, there is nothing to think about. So the right thought means there's no thought because there's no activity.
Right.
So for a skilled practitioner, in the formal practice, the mind starts to become very calm, and we start to experience silence for almost the very first time. So in a way, mindfulness practice is a way to understand our own silence. And most people have no understanding of their own silence. Even if you sit still in the beginning, you might be silent, the mouth is closed, but the mind is shouting away. You see, very busy shouting mind.
Yeah.
So silence is one of those things. You either understand it or you don't understand it. There is no possibility to misunderstand it because there's nothing to misunderstand. It's silence.
Right.
This is very different to speech.
Accepting too. Is it something to do with accepting that as being?
There is an isness to it. Yes, we're going to go into the relationship part where we'll explore this. There is an isness to this moment. So there's nothing to do, but there's a being aware. You can call it acceptance, but there's a being aware that's taking place, but nothing to do. And when we go into the opposite of silence, which is speech, speech has the opposite quality. Speech is very difficult to know that you're understanding what is being said properly. And it's very difficult to know that you don't understand properly, but it's very easy to misunderstand speech. Whereas silence has the opposite qualities. And there's something about having a silent mind that is deeply, deeply pleasant. You can call it heaven on earth. And the whole art and science of mindfulness practice is essentially to cultivate the quality where the mind is in the middle of the wheel. And no matter how fast life is going, the wheel is spinning, the middle of the wheel is always the same. So this is like a quick overview of what mindfulness practice points to, so that we're in the same context. It's really developing, it's like a mental training to develop these two abilities, to have a right awareness and also equanimity. And that just allows us to just navigate through life a little more skillfully. There's a lightness in the journey when the mind doesn't get stuck on these persistent clinging thoughts.
Yeah, and I can kind of relate to that because I think I told you the story about how I started doing yoga and some meditation probably about 10 years ago now. I was going to these classes and we were doing yoga and I loved it. And we were doing meditation at the end. We'd do about 5 or 8 minutes of meditation. And I would sit in the class and, you know, I'd be like opening my eyes and looking to my side and saying, is this person getting into it? Because it felt awkward and it felt, I didn't know if I was doing it correctly. I wasn't comfortable with it. And I did this for many weeks and many weeks. And then one week I did it and something changed. I came out of the meditation and I felt very different. I felt very, just very content. It felt right. It felt like nothing was wrong. It was a very odd experience, but the most beautiful experience at the same time. You know, I crossed the street. I went to the dépanneur to pick something up. I saw the guy behind the cash and I was like, he is just wonderful. I didn't know him, but everything just felt very different. So I had a little moment, I think, where the meditation kind of, maybe I got into it finally. Maybe I finally just relaxed into it. I don't know. But I was convinced after that. I said, wow, there's something here. And I wouldn't have known it if I hadn't gone on and done it many weeks. It took me several weeks, I think, before I had that one experience. Right?
That's it. It's really in the experience. And I'm happy you experienced the middle of the wheel. And once you experience it, you just fall in love with it. And, you know, all I'm doing is just sharing my enthusiasm for that beautiful state. And yeah, it's simple. Right. Doesn't mean it's easy. You know,
No.
in the beginning, like you experienced, you doubt yourself, you question, what is this? Am I doing it right? Is it so awkward? Because the mind is not used to being silent. We're so used to experiencing a crowd in the head, and suddenly it's silent is very awkward because the mind has been trained so much to just, when we look at the wheel, for example, the future aversion are things like fear, phobia, anxiety, neurosis, stress. Future pleasant is things like excitement,
Right.
Past pleasant is things like nostalgia. Past unpleasant is things like guilt, shame, fear, regret. So we spend so much time with all these places that being silent just seems so awkward. The
Yeah.
mind is not used to it.
And I wanted to share a couple of quotes that I love. And I want to see what you thought of them. So one of them is this: you are the books you read, the movies you watch, the music you listen to, the people you spend time with, the conversations you engage in. Choose wisely what you feed your mind.
Mm.
Another: worrying is stupid. It's like walking around with an umbrella waiting for it to rain. I love that one. And lastly, the peace you want is already in you. You just can't feel it because your mind is making so much noise.
So let's look at the first one. A way to summarize it would be you are what you practice. And, if you're practicing, getting anxious all the time, you'll become a master at getting anxious all the time because that's what you've been practicing. If you're practicing sitting on a chair, 10 hours a day for decades, you'll get really good at that, but really bad at everything else. So absolutely,
I love that analogy, Bhaskar,
Mhm.
that you become an expert of something that you do all the time.
Every moment we're practicing something, and certainly when we are practicing being exposed to information as well. So what information you're being exposed to is what the mind is being trained in. So it's very helpful, of course, to be exposed to information that informs and inspires you in a meaningful way. But having said that, that's the purpose of information. It informs and inspires. It really only matters meaningfully when it actually moves into the third stage, which is practice. So we experience it and know what we've learned to be true. If it just stays at an academic intellectual level, then it doesn't actually manifest meaningfully in our lives. You see, so it's very helpful, of course, but there's a third step, which is to integrate all of that and sort of use our life as a laboratory to experiment and experience those thoughts and ideas to see if it's true for us. The other quote, there was one about the worrying.
Rain, the umbrella and the rain.
That's it. So especially now we can perhaps segue into relationship a little bit because there's a lot of uncertainty right now in life for all of us. We're living in perhaps the most uncertain times in our living experience for most of us. So we are not comfortable with uncertainty. I'm seeing, as this pandemic is dragging on, it's almost a year now, people who are on the spectrum range of normal are getting more and more anxious, and all the other hues of anxiousness. And anxiousness, as I said before, is basically the mind going into future unpleasant. What if this unwanted thing happens? What if this wanted thing does not happen? So we spend so much time worrying and so with the what if and so little time with the what is. And that's the antidote to the worrying. You're just training the mind to what is. So even in the what is, it's possible to project into the future. This is called planning and not worrying. So it's possible to plan, but you're planning now, not suffering twice by imagining something terrible and it also happening, So it's important to plan, but there's this equanimity behind it. So that's something to consider about worrying, that it's really the mind dwelling in the future. And like you just said, it's a simple case of just switching the channel. Our attention is so trained to going towards the sense gate of thought, just switch the channel to feeling the breath or noticing what the eyes are seeing or just hearing gross and subtle sounds. It's just switching the channel. Well, look at this, say you're outside looking at the snow, and suddenly the thought comes, oh, it's so beautiful.
Right.
Then I should take a picture. I must put it on Instagram. I'll put a nice caption, a nice tagline from Dalai Lama. Gone.
I don't know how many likes I'm going to get.
The mind is no longer with the snow. You see?
Yeah.
That's the difference between a working mind and a thinking mind. So many of us are sort of either living in isolation or living with people, and after a while, even the most pleasant people could jam up. And I want to kind of look at this because I know a lot of people are having difficult time just living with so many people, perhaps in-laws and elderly or children and so on.
Right.
So how does mindfulness impact relationships in that sense, or intimate relationships even? Say I'm sitting here, I'm perfectly fine, I'm having a good time, I feel very peaceful, drinking my nice tea. And then say my wife walks by and she says something.
Right.
And I get upset. See, it seems to be from a logical perspective, the problem is 100% with her. She's so moody, she's so grumpy, she's so la la la, you know? What's wrong with me? I'm perfectly fine. I was fine before she came. She disturbed me. So the problem is 100% there, 0% here. It seems to be like that.
Right.
If you become more nuanced, a little more mature, then we start to become a little more diplomatic. Yes, she behaved unpleasantly for whatever reason, at least from my perception, but look at me. I'm also reacting. I'm also shouting back. I also said mean things. So you become a diplomat and you go 50-50. 50% you, 50% me. It's both our faults. Let's forget about it.
Right.
When one becomes more developed in the practice, which is right awareness of what's actually happening in the body right now, we make a very peculiar and humbling discovery. It is 0% there, 100% here. Because like you said, out there is just lights, colors, shapes, sounds. It's the way I'm interpreting it. It's the sensations that are in my body that are causing me to react.
Right.
Because the sense is unpleasant, I'm reacting this way. And a very simple way to understand it, there's a lot to it, of course, but as a quick way to explain it, what I'm calling my wife, behaving unwholesomely, is basically lights, colors, shapes, sounds that are being perceived. So the mind is perceiving. Then right away, the mind goes into my entire memory. Entire memory is being collected in my subconscious mind and recognizes, oh, that's my wife saying unpleasant things. So I've gone from perceiving to recognizing. And then based on my recognizing, the next thing that happens, immediately I interpret. If it's pleasant, I have pleasant sensations. Oh, she's praising me. How wonderful. If it's neutral, like, get the groceries, nothing is happening, no sensation. But if it's unpleasant, how could you leave the toilet seat up or something like this, for example, unpleasant sensation. So what I'm doing really is reacting to sensation. And depending on how unpleasant it is, that determines my amplitude of reaction. If it's mildly unpleasant, no problem, I'll close the toilet seat. No big deal.
Right.
If it is more unpleasant, then I may take vocal action. Hey, don't you know that it wasn't me, it was the kids, something like this. And if it's very unpleasant, I may even stomp my hand and storm out of the house. I take physical action. It's just the yardstick of how unpleasant the sensation was.
Right.
Once we start to realize the inner game of relationship, it's a real game changer. And every interaction becomes an opportunity to experience these reactive patterns. It's actually, if you have a sense of humor, it's very amusing. It's really, really kind of fun to see, oh, look, anger has come. Oh, look, irritation has come. Oh, look, depression has come. There's an understanding, not theoretical, but experiential understanding, that no emotion is eternal. It won't last forever.
That's right.
It's going to come, do a little dance, move on. If it's going to move on, why get worked up about it,
Totally agree. And I often say that if I can invite that emotion in, I can have it sit down for a moment, but I can also have it leave eventually too. So there's nothing wrong with giving it a bit of attention, but maybe not letting it stay and spend the night kind of thing.
You got it, no?
Yeah.
Every emotion basically is a messenger. Why am I reacting this way? To be a little bit curious about this is wonderful, because you actually get to see yourself as you are. Yes. And in that seeing, it has a releasing quality because we no longer become it. The seeing implies that you're observing it. Observer, observing, observed. So suddenly, from a subjective experience, it becomes an objective experience. From an I am angry to a there is anger. This small change in words is a huge difference in experience.
Oh, I love it because you also kind of de-dramatize everything.
Mm.
It's kind of just, it's happening and it will pass. And, it's not taking yourself too seriously, right?
Mm.
It's kind of that.
Yes, take yourself with a sense of humor is very important. What's actually happening is they're dwelling in some idea. They're not actually with the sensation of depression, anger, frustration, sadness. They're actually with some imagination. So the actual sensation is completely neglected. You don't even realize that how much harm is being caused to the body, by entertaining and by giving permanent residency to that thought. I will never forgive him, for all my life. Who's benefiting from this? The person is gone, but your body is suffering.
Right. Yeah. And Bhaskar, I came to know you through a video that I saw, and somebody shared something on LinkedIn, and I remember looking at this video about where you talked about gratefulness,
Mm.
and it was so, to me, it was so simple, but so made so much sense. I wonder if you remember what that is.
Yes, yes. Gratefulness is the great hack, the
Yeah.
great hack into all this drama.
Yes.
Because if you look at the mechanics of gratefulness, and we go back to the mind wheel, if you look at the mechanics, I'm not speaking about intellectual gratefulness. I'm speaking about experiential gratefulness. And not I am grateful for my children, I'm grateful for my house. This is intellectual. But if you really feel gratefulness, firstly, you have to notice it. So the mind is fully present. So right away, you're right in the midpoint between past and future. You have to be totally present to see it. In fact, all of existence is totally present, except us, many of us Homo sapiens. But generally, we come back to that alignment with existence, fully present. And when you're grateful, there's no, I want more, I don't like it, I don't like it. The drama goes away. And right away, the mind becomes equanimous. So actually, practicing gratitude as an experience brings us very quickly to the middle of the wheel. It's a state change. I would say gratitude is really a side effect of noticing. The real practice is noticing anything. If you really, really notice, even the most ordinary things, it suddenly becomes extraordinary.
Yes.
And you can't help but feel grateful.
Yes.
So it's more effect. The cause is the deepening of noticing anything.
Absolutely. So listen, Bhaskar, I think we've come to the end.
Oh, good. That was brisk.
It went so fast. And I wanted you to maybe introduce a little bit of what you do. And because I know that you are a yogapreneur or a yogipreneur. But I know you have different facets to what you are doing. So maybe you want to share that, because maybe somebody would love to get in touch with you, because I know you do corporate things as well. So
yes, thank you so much, Anna. What I fundamentally do is I share my enthusiasm for the practice, and for whatever reason, I'm gifted in showing people how to practice. So the three main things that I do is I do a lot of speaking engagements in terms of workshops and seminars and so on, to just inform and inspire people to give this practice a try. I also offer group classes in organizations and also private one-on-one consulting when people are going through something specific in their life. And finally, I also do a lot of retreats and things like this. So essentially, I share the practice by any means necessary.
right.
So if anybody would like to learn more about, how to sort of develop this self-understanding of this body-mind system, this is my passion. I love to share and serve in this way.
And where could they reach you? How would they reach out to you?
Well, my website is bhaskargoswami.com. So essentially my name.com. And the last time I checked, I think I was the only Bhaskar Goswami in Montreal. So if you just search it on LinkedIn and Facebook and things like that, I'm quite easy to find.
Right. And you've been doing this for a long time, right?
20 years now. Yes.
How
yes.
many?
20 years.
20 years.
20
wow.
years.
Wow.
And I'm so grateful that in that journey, I have been in every situation you can imagine. Every organization, from addiction centers, prisons, schools, elderly homes, of course, many companies. I've seen people who are like elite athletes, industrialists, all kinds of people. So I know this practice is really good for everybody.
Oh, I think I totally agree. You're what do they say? You're preaching to the choir.
It's so simple as well. Just show up. You don't need anything else. It's just your body and mind. It's such a simple thing. And it's
Right.
so beautiful. So I encourage the listener, viewer to give the practice a try, whatever shape and form it might take.
For sure. Thanks so much. I
Oh, my
appreciate
pleasure, Donna. What a treat. Thank you.
it. Thanks. Take care. Get out in the snow. Go and
Very soon.
visit
Very
and
soon.
stuff. It's good for you.